Because when you
Mm-hmm.
started, you were talking about the tribalism.
Mm-hmm.
I know this is not the topic, but if you would allow me, I just want to say a word or two about it.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Because,
I'm
because I
going
think,
to get to that. I'm very much interested in your reaction to the prevailing um, atmosphere right now. As you could see, that is one of the underline. Please, by all means, go ahead.
yes, what CDJ did was not a mistake as the president wants people to believe. It was deliberate and calculated. CDJ came from the Yaya Jammeh School of Politics. And this disrespect towards the Mandinkas has been festering in our country for a very long time, and it has to stop. Nobody in that country has to be marginalized because of the tribe they belong to or a political party they support. Some people will characterize me as a Wolof. In my family, I have nieces and nephews who are Fati, or cousins who are Fatis, nieces who are Jalo. I have everything in my family, and it that's not unique to me. Every one of us has that. One thing that we must do collectively is reject the likes of Sidinjai and their very backward politics. I am so disappointed, but not surprised, that President Adam Barrow, instead of denouncing this hatred from Sidinjai, has a problem with Maimuna Sisi and others coming out and denounce it publicly. What is wrong and must be addressed whether publicly or privately. In fact, what Sidinjai said, he was, can you imagine the deputy speaker of the country bragging about denying a Gambian their right to employment because that person is supposedly a Mandinka or a supporter of an other political party? And you call that a democracy? We have to be able to exist as a people, and no one should be sidelined or discriminated against in that country. Sidin Jai and his likes must be thrown to the dustbin of history because they cannot represent the republic. The Gambia must be a Gambia of one cankling. We cannot allow a Sidin Jai or any one of those tribalists to hold any position of power or any position of power to sway anything in that country because they are dangerous, and what they are doing undermines our coexistence and, of course, the very stability that we are trying to build. That's all I wanted to say on that. Thank you, Farmer.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Coach. Before you go, I just wanted to quickly ask. I was shocked personally. I have to confess, I was shocked by the president's reaction. You would think that the president would come and at least even push back against that notion. The notion that we can discriminate against any one individual by virtue of the language that they speak, by virtue of their identity, their religious affiliation, or anything at all that makes us a Gambian. But I did not see any pushback. I did not see the president, even attempting to clarify, to make clear that we are one and the same, to push this idea of oneness, unity as a people. Are you surprised by, should I say, disappointed in the president's reaction, his comments, his immediate comments, particularly blaming another member of the NPP for bringing the issue out, for speaking publicly against what Sidinjai said in that leaked recording?
Yeah, I'm disappointed, but it also shows the mindset of the president and his NPP. They've been consistently engaged in the most tribal politics in our country. But here is the thing, though. The sad thing about it, even that press release that was published today, their emphasis is more in trying to show the strength of the president. He does not need anybody to influence him to make a decision, rather than condemning the elephant in the room. And that was the tribal nature of it. It doesn't matter whether anybody else convinced the president, but the mere fact that you can say that the deputy permanent secretary is a Mandinka, isn't he? What was that supposed to mean? But the president, true to form, failed the test of leadership by refusing to condemn this very nasty politics. But for the president to also have the audacity to complain about nasty politics, the tribal politics. But that's what you do. That's what your camp does. And by your reaction, and this President Adama Barrow, you have tacitly endorsed the nonsense that was spewed by Sidinjai. Sidinjai feels very comfortable doing what he did because he knows very well that President Adama Barrow would always back him. Because to President Adama Barrow, what matters is not what is right. What matters is how you defend him.
Coach, finally, do you think the response from the so-called NPP-led alliance, the fact that it even came from the NPP-led alliance and not NPP as a party, or Sidinjai himself, personally, I think he should have been forced to come out and apologize. Because, just like you rightly mentioned, tribe, ethnicity, race, these are very sensitive issues, and we've seen what they have done in other parts of the world, especially Africa. Rwanda is a good case in point. Are you satisfied with the response from them? The fact that Mayor, TAS presidents came from them, and not necessarily. What more would you like to see to have come from the NPP and the presidency in particular, and Sidinjai as a whole, since he's part of the NPP architecture?
It's a farce. It's nothing but a charade. And what is happening here is most of them do not even believe what they're saying. Because the selfishness in our politics, it was killing that country. NPP has its factions. You have the Sidinjai faction, you have the other faction that do not like Sidinjai. So this was their way of capitalizing on it. But hearing what the president said, so they are trying to tiptoe around it. Because especially I saw my party face, plastered on the newspaper. When Jammeh attacked the Mandinkas, my party was very forceful in his condemnation. Where is that now? What is different from this? It's the same nonsense tactic. We all remember what happened in the country after the 2001 elections. Most Gambians have a very short memory. The purging that happened when people were being fired from their jobs because they were perceived to be UDP supporters. And most people who were fired then and accused of being UDP supporters were mainly Mandinkas. So I'm not seeing you anymore. Oh, you're still here. My was very forceful in condemning Jammeh when he said his attacks on Mandinkas. But for them to dance around this issue, dealing with Sidinjai, to me, is the height of dishonesty, because I would have expected at least a more forceful denunciation of Sidinjai. But this is not the first time that we have heard this thing from the from the NPP camp. They've always played the tribal cards, and they will continue to play it during this election. Sadly, though, the only losers in this will be the Gambians, because instead of looking at issues that would salvage our country, we are now focused on this nonsense that Sidinjai spews. But Sidinjai is a very dangerous fellow because he is conniving, he is unprincipled, and most dangerously, he is a tribalist. So you cannot have such a person in any leadership position in a democratic country.
Thank you very much, Coach Pa Samba Jow. Madingolu kaliamo nyaming Coach Pa Samba Jow na telebejang nga kiba kamar soto barenga Honorable Magistrate Lamin Bay soto former Principal Magistrate Banjul Magistrates Court